Hi, you're listening to Sustainably Geeky. I'm your host, Jennifer, and this is episode 94. Today, we're going to be speaking with Alex Fogg, Natural Resources Chief at Destin-Fort Walton Beach in Northwest Florida, about marine conservation and sustainable tourism. So, Alex, it sounds like you have a really fun job. I'd love to hear more about it, and can you just start by telling us what you do and then how you came to work in this role?
Yeah. Hey, Jennifer, thank you very much for having me. You're totally right. This is the best job on the planet. I'm trained as a marine biologist, went to school for marine biology, went and got my graduate degree in coastal sciences. And never in a million years did I see myself as being working in a local government within a tourism group. So the cool part is everything that we do, which I'll get about that, get a little more in depth about that in just a second, but everything that we do can be tied back to tourism. So when I first started here about eight and a half years ago, it was just me. And I was charged with kind of getting a handle on invasive lionfish, what the situation was here in the Gulf, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute, but also ramp up our artificial reef program to benefit our fisheries and diving community. That's morphed into a full natural resources department within our tourism development department, which is also called Destin-Fort Walton Beach. And we now are a team of 8 or 9 biologists that manage everything from the water all the way up to land and streams and lakes. So if it has something to do with nature and it can be tied back to tourism, which is pretty much everything, that's what we do.
Yeah, I'm especially interested to hear about the work you do on invasives. I have a little bit of experience with invasive rhododendron in Ireland, and I'm from Texas, so we had a big zebra mussel campaign. You'd hear the songs on the radio to clean, drain, dry your boat. But I just imagine like dealing with invasives in the water has got to be so much more challenging. I mean, it's challenging no matter where you are, but like in a different way because the water just goes everywhere. You can't really control it. You can't. Yeah, it's a whole other ballgame, I guess. But yeah, so many important issues you mentioned there. Let's just start with the basics. Why is marine conservation important? Even if you don't live near the ocean, what should the average person be worried about conserving the ocean for?
Yeah, just to touch on the invasives real quick, lionfish, for example, are a species that are occurring in the marine system, which is a little bit different than your zebra mussels and some of the other freshwater critters that, while still going out of control, are a little easier to contain than out in the open Gulf or open ocean environment. But marine conservation is really, really important. I mean, there's people who live around the coast and want to have, beautiful waters to be able to swim in and be able to sustain life. But the people who come to our destination or destinations throughout the world that have beautiful beaches and beautiful water, their economies, their tourism is dependent on those waters. So what we do here in Destin-Fort Walton Beach to maintain healthy beaches, good water quality, maintaining healthy fisheries, that all benefits the tourism, but it also benefits all the folks who live here, which is, a really, really awesome sell in itself.
If you're thinking, oh, I love going to the beach for whatever reason, as someone who doesn't live near the beach, maybe it's a novelty, like it takes a lot of work to get it to that point where you can actually enjoy it, right? Like it's not, I guess a lot of people probably just think those beautiful, lush blue ocean that you can see through is a given, but it takes a lot of work, and the conservation work is part of that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And we actually also manage sea turtle conservation. So every morning our team actually goes out, hits the beach and marks nests, monitors the sea turtle nesting activity on our beaches, and makes sure that the public is interacting with them in a natural way, or at least not impacting those nests while they incubate and eventually hatch a couple months later. So this year we already have about 10 nests across Destin-Fort Walton beaches, which is quite a bit. It's not like the rest of the state. Our beaches don't have a ton of nesting activity, but the nests we have are really important. We also just finished up a big beach restoration project. We placed a little shy of 200,000 cubic yards of sand on the beach, which is not only important for the people who like to go to the beach, but it's also really important for those nesting sea turtles. It's important for protecting the upland structures. It's important for the birds and beach mice and other things that utilize the sand and the dunes for habitat. So while people see these massive construction projects and maybe just think of it as a situation where we're trying to just benefit the public and tourists, it's also a huge environmental win for all the critters that utilize our beaches.
Yeah, I mean, the ocean and beaches serve such a huge ecosystem services in terms of everything you've mentioned, but also like people don't think about a lot of times the reefs can be breaks against storms and there's just like countless ways that it can impact, you know, if you live inland, like having a healthy ocean system actually does help. And yeah, I'd be interested to hear, I guess, any more that you want to talk about any of those things that you're seeing, or even in other places outside of Florida where maybe the ocean is changing or it's not serving the purpose, you know, that it has for so many years.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so in our area, we have a lot of families that come to our destination. And when we're out there doing our normal work, whether it be sea turtle monitoring or creating artificial reefs or, conducting little adventurous classes, we're interacting with a lot of families, a lot of kids. And it is amazing how many of them already have a background in understanding why the oceans are important. But we're able to drive a lot of that home through our interaction with those families and those kids. And I think when they go home, they talk about, let's say, a fish that they tagged that's part of a large, fish tagging project where we're tracking survival, movement, and growth. When that animal gets recaptured and we call, that little kid or that family saying, hey, your fish got recaptured a month later or a year later, and we tell them a little bit about where it moved, it really further drives home some of the initiatives that we have here in the destination and maybe thinking a little more outside the box on what normal outreach and education would look like in a destination that's really driven by tourism.
Yeah, so you're really getting them involved in the conservation work and like caring, I guess, invested in
Yeah.
the work
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're doing.
Absolutely. Every single day we're interacting with people, and every week we have a new group of folks that are coming to the destination to visit, and it's a whole bunch of fresh minds to tap into.
That's great. Can you talk about the current state of ocean health globally and some of the challenges that is facing the ocean as we're looking at changing climate and changing other natural challenges that are just happening around the world?
Yeah, for sure. So I come from a background of fisheries, so fish are my thing. I'm a fish geek. Um, you look at other parts of the world. I've gone a lot of different places and looked at the state of the fisheries in other areas. And here in the Gulf, we are very, very fortunate to have very robust fisheries management rules to make sure that we have healthy fisheries, which in turn helps maintain our reefs. We don't have a lot of natural reefs here, but we do have a lot of artificial reefs where we've actually deployed structures to be habitat for fishes, be locations where people can go fishing and diving. And this has really gone a long way to help maintain these fisheries that I was referring to. I mean, there's hundreds of charter boats that go out every single day to go fishing. And if they didn't have fish to be able to fish for or places for them to be able to go fishing, the reefs that they did have would be obliterated. There'd be no fish left. And it really wouldn't be a good thing for the ecosystem, and certainly would be good for the experience and for the folks that are coming to the area to go fishing and diving. So while fisheries are really important worldwide and the management that we have is really, really important, our area takes it a step further by taking it into our own hands to make it a better place for fish, for fishermen, and for divers.
And just outside of like fish stocks and the overall impact on biodiversity, like what other issues are facing the oceans? Is there anything else that you would point to that's like one of the biggest challenges?
No, yeah. I mean, we're seeing changes in climate. We're seeing different water temperatures, fish moving into areas that maybe haven't been there before. And it's just finding a way and monitoring how the ecosystem changes. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's things that we can't really stop. And we just have to take it with a grain of salt and try and work our messaging and work our programs around it. We're starting to see species of fish and other things in our area that we've never seen before. But that's also really kind of interesting. I mean, you go diving and you're seeing things that maybe you would normally only see in more southern climates, or after a strong weather event like a hurricane, you go out diving and you see fish that have been displaced from their normal habitat and pushed up into our areas. So being able to adapt to the changes is really important.
And so, speaking of adapting to changes, coastal communities are facing a lot of unique challenges right now as the planet warms, and also just beaches are shifting and things are changing. So, what are some of these unique challenges, and then how are coastal communities addressing them?
Yeah, so going back to the beaches. So in our area, we're so dependent on beaches, not only for the tourism, but also to help protect upland structures. And being able to have a robust beach management and beach restoration program is really, really important. By placing sand on the beach and following strong storms or on a regular basis really helps manage the coastal system. And what we've seen in our area is, we can have a significant amount of sand move in a season, depending on the storm activity. And if we did not take action to place sand back on the beach or create more robust coastal systems, we would not have the condos, we would not have the beach habitat or the beaches for the tourists to be able to go to, or even locals for be able to go to. So it's definitely important that we continue these beach restoration projects.
Yeah, and it's got to be a lot of logistics to manage all that. At what point, I guess, do you say, maybe it's not possible to fix the changes that are happening? I mean, is that something that your community or you've heard others have talked about, where maybe you have to look at other adaptations or try something different, I guess?
Yeah. Fortunately, we haven't gotten to that point. We don't see us getting to that point as long as we continue to manage our beaches and our coastal systems well. But you look at some neighboring communities where maybe they're on a barrier island. Those barrier islands are shifting significantly with each storm event, which can result in different houses or different infrastructure being impacted to the point to where it can't really be repaired or replaced. And in those cases, either you need to just move, or you need to come up with another sort of armoring to protect your beaches, whether it be rocks or seawalls or things like that. But fortunately, with our community, adding beach sand and keeping the system healthy in that way has been the best approach, and hopefully that will be the best approach into the future.
Yeah, and hopefully, as science studies this stuff more, and there's more, learned about how these natural systems work, other communities can kind of learn from each other and see what works and manage to have to fix this rather than having to retreat.
And it really is interesting, because you look at some of these other communities, even just 100 miles away, which really isn't that far in the whole scheme of things, but the way their systems act are completely different. And it's a factor of the weather, the currents, the depth, the reefs, the seagrasses, the mangroves, whatever it may be. And every community is very different. And like I say again, we're very fortunate to have the system that we have, and not a whole lot of development, the whole scheme of things, when you're comparing it to other regions.
Definitely. Well, you've kind of already mentioned some of your community's challenges and achievements, but is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of what species are unique to your area? And I know you have a few programs that you're starting to, like you've mentioned, you've built some unique habitats, and then I think you have like a couple of artificial reefs in the works. So do you want to talk about any of that?
Sure. Yeah. We'll touch on invasives real quick. So, there's a species of fish in particular that is real near and dear to my heart, for better or worse, and it's the invasive lionfish. They're not from here. They're from the Indo-Pacific. They showed up in the Atlantic coast in the mid-1980s and eventually made it into the Gulf and off of Destin-Fort Walton Beach in 2010, which really isn't that long ago. 16 years is not long. But we didn't know how our system was going to react. Were we going to see the collapse of fisheries? Were we going to see just a bunch of barren reefs except for a whole bunch of lionfish? Fortunately, we have not seen that. There's certainly been changes to the system, but lionfish are here to stay. And as opposed to us just trying to fight a losing battle, in my opinion, we've turned lemons into lemonade by creating events around invasive lionfish, creating tournaments to remove the most, creating a market for them by serving them in restaurants. These aren't like zebra mussels or wild hogs or other things that really don't taste good on the table. These are very, very good fish to eat. And there's truly a sustained market for lionfish when the seafood markets can get it. And this turned into the Emerald Coast Open, which is the largest lionfish tournament in the world, which began here in 2019. So we just wrapped up our 2026 event about a month ago, and we consistently remove more than 20,000 lionfish during this event. It's a lot of fish. And every single one of those fish ends up on the plate for those individual or for those lionfish that aren't big enough to fillet. We still freeze them, and then we ship them off to different high schools around the country in collaboration with a number of other groups for them to be able to dissect lionfish. So it turns into an education opportunities in areas where maybe lionfish is foreign. I like to think that everybody knows about lionfish, but that's not the case. So, lionfish is definitely is a cornerstone of the Destin-Fort Walton Beach community, fishing and diving community, that is. So if you're ever along the coast and you see lionfish on the menu, I highly recommend having it. And if you're looking to hunt lionfish as a diver, or see lionfish pretty regularly around our community, come to Destin-Fort Walton Beach.
Yeah, it's nice when a problem can kind of work economically in a way, as long as it doesn't, you don't get so overwhelmed with them that you oversaturate the market, I guess. But can you talk about like why lionfish are bad? What makes them invasive? Are they pushing out another species? Are they eating all their food, or kind of a little bit of everything?
Yeah, both of those are reasons. So lionfish are a predatory reef fish. So they like to hang around reefs, natural and artificial reefs. And they are opportunistic feeders. So they'll eat anything that really fits in their mouth, from shrimp to small, cryptic critters that hang around the reef, to commercially and recreationally important species like small snappers and groupers. Early in the invasion, when the population was really, really high, we could go to locations, reefs the size of, let's say, your car. You could remove 300 lionfish from that site. So with lionfish directly preying on these commercially and economically important species, but also competing with those animals for the same food sources, that was a major problem. And that's why we thought that, oh my gosh, we're going to see a collapse. We're going to see some major changes. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that. Nature's found a way to kind of deal with them. Sure, there's been some species that have probably taken a hit, but it's not the collapse that maybe we were expecting. But they're also able to reproduce very, very quickly, very early in life, which sets them up for success. Kind of the jackrabbits of the sea, if you use that as a good example. And their reproductive method is they actually release eggs into the water column, and they drift in the water with the currents for a month, 2 months at a time. And as you can imagine, if there's a current that's going, let's say, 1 mile an hour, over the course of 1 to 2 months, that's a lot of distance these eggs can travel prior to settling on a reef. So that's why they were able to spread so quickly with the aid of the currents. And they really don't have any predators. So a lot of the fish that are here don't recognize them as a food source. Also, they have venomous spines. They're a little bit spicy for those groupers and snappers and eels and other things that would normally eat them in their native range. There's also they may be resistant to some of the diseases that occur here, or maybe the diseases that keep them in check over in the Pacific don't occur here. So there's still a lot to learn about the species, even though we've spent a lot of time and effort to study them. But we're keeping pretty good tabs on their population in the Destin-Fort Walton Beach area, and we're going to continue to encourage folks to come here to remove them, but also participate in our events that we host every year.
Yeah, it's just so interesting how 1 or 2 changes to an ecosystem can turn a species from perfectly well managed to invasive, and all they have to do is kind of move a little bit this way or that way, and now they're a huge problem, whereas they're fine in their homes.
Exactly. And with lionfish, they were kind of just dropped here out of nowhere. But you were talking about changes in water temperature earlier, and if we start to see warming temperatures here, there's going to be some species that have not been in our system or residents in our system, which can totally change things as well, especially if you introduce a large predator, a large grouper that maybe wouldn't have occurred here. Now they're competing with our once native groupers, and start to really upset the balance of the system. So it's something that we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on as the years go on and as things change.
It brings up like an interesting conversation about what species are truly native, because that shifts over time, right? What our landscape looks like now, it looked completely different. It might have been covered by ice or an ocean or whatever thousands of years ago, and so our perception of this is normal is going to change, and sometimes it's hard to let go of, no, this isn't native, to, like you said, having to just adapt and realize that this is the new normal.
Yeah, exactly. And my daughter's 9 months old, and I cannot wait to get her underwater, get her fishing and doing all of those things. And I wonder, 5-10 years down the road, when she starts down that journey, what these reefs are going to look like. What is the fishery going to look like? Are we catching a lot of red snapper like we are today? Or is it going to be, Nassau grouper or something that we don't have here yet, but could potentially move into our area if waters continue to warm? So
that shifting baseline that happens every generation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, you've obviously got a lot of natural resources in your area to take advantage of and make into ecotourism initiatives. That's kind of a newer topic to a lot of people, like the idea of traveling to do something in nature or to take advantage of whatever a location has that's unique to that area. So could you talk a little bit about that phenomena and how important it is to both take care of the resources that you have in a given community, and also just kind of like how your community went from, oh, we have this cool thing, maybe we should steward it, rather than just ignoring it and not realizing the opportunity you have?
Yeah, I think the mindset of a traveler has certainly changed, and we've seen that in our destination, or at least the folks that are coming to the destination. They truly do care. There's initiatives all across Destin-Fort Walton Beach where people, when they go to the beach, can go and enjoy the beach, but there's also ways for them to be able to help keep those beaches clean, do a mini beach cleanup on their own, or participate in one of the beach cleanups that maybe we're hosting along our beaches. As they're walking down the beach and they encounter a sea turtle nest that's been marked off, they can learn more information about that. At each of our public beach access ways, there's information to point people in the direction of different adventures, being able to learn how to cast net as a kid, or paddleboard, or surf, or just go fishing and learn about the fishery and some of the regulations that are in place to protect the fishery. I mean, those are just a few of the items that we have that are readily available to the person who may be coming to the destination. But also when people come and they stay at a hotel that's, certainly more, I guess, conservation minded, they may notice that the lights are red or amber in color, and they may wonder why. And these hotels have done a great job of educating people about the negative impacts of white light, and how them incorporating red light into their hotel helps protect nesting sea turtles, or helps protect wildlife from maybe going the wrong way when they're coming up on the nest up on the beach to nest, or there being too much light to keep them safe while they're foraging around at night. Those are just a few things along our coastal waters that are certainly important. But the artificial reefs, that's where we're trying to find things, or trying to create opportunities for people that are beyond what you would normally go on vacation to do. You're going to the coast, Destin-Fort Walton Beach, to go to the beach. That's awesome, but are you going to do that every single day? I burn out after about an hour on the beach. So I've got to find something else to do, whether it be go and snorkel at one of the reefs that are public access ways, taking a dive charter to go offshore and explore some of our deeper reefs, participating in those beach cleanups, going offshore to go fishing and bringing those fish back and having them cook them in front of you at one of our restaurants, or cook them for you at one of our restaurants to where you're eating the fish that you caught. I mean, that is a novel approach that really not many destinations are participating in, or they're only just now starting to incorporate into their marketing and messaging. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for people to get down here and go to the beach, but there's a lot more things beyond the beach. You could even go to the north end of our county, 20, 30 minutes away, and go hiking, go through the woods. There's not a lot of destinations where you can do the beach, but then you can also get away from the beach and get into the woods and not know that you're only 20, 30 minutes away from the beach in a beach town. We aren't very developed like maybe other parts of the state of Florida, or other parts of the country, or even worldwide. We're a very unique destination and within reach of a lot of really awesome opportunities.
Yeah, I think people now are looking more for experiences, especially things they can't do at home. Like I know I enjoy traveling and looking at the buildings and the culture and eating the food just as much as anyone, but I also like doing the weird activities that I can't do where I live.
Yep, absolutely.
That's the whole point of leaving. So as travelers become more eco-conscious, there is always still that idea that travel itself causes an environmental impact, both just from the emissions of traveling and then using up resources, etc. And there's often, when you're talking about using a natural resource, just the traffic of having people on that mountain or that sand dune or whatever can make that thing suffer. There's that idea of like loving your parks to death, where if you set aside this park, it's going to eventually wear down and have erosion and all that. So how do you balance that very real problem with the need to protect the ocean and make it sustainable so that people can still enjoy it long term?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what we try and do is encourage the public to give back in some way. When they come, whether you're a local or whether you're a tourist, you come and you pick up a few pieces of trash when you're on the beach, or you plant some sea oats with our team if we happen to have an event going on while you're here, or maybe releasing that fish that you may have otherwise taken home to eat, to allow it to grow and reproduce. There's a lot of these different initiatives that we're encouraging people to help maintain a healthy system and a healthy place for them to come back to, and for their kids to be able to come back to. Learn a little bit about our destination, learn about these different initiatives, go home and talk about it at your schools or talk about it at work. and encourage people to maybe do a little more research about which destinations are actually taking care of their natural resources before booking their trip. And I think you'll notice very quickly that, we're certainly leading the charge there in Destin-Fort Walton Beach compared to some of the other destinations that maybe are just trying to get people to come and enjoy the beach and not necessarily give back and protect those natural resources that brought them there in the first place.
Yeah, so definitely looking for more interactive and paying attention to what the communities are doing on the ground to encourage the sustainable mindset rather than just, come visit us for the pretty scenery and we'll take your money.
Which and we want people to come and visit for those reasons, but then also go the step further to help keep it pristine or keep it, as natural as possible. The understanding, like you said, love it to death. There's going to be impacts, but being able to mitigate those impacts or doing what you can to extend the amount of time that these natural areas remain natural.
Well, and then on the flip side, what advice would you offer to communities that are maybe looking to grow their ecotourism sector or capitalize on whatever natural resources they have in a sustainable way?
Yeah, partner with your local Sea Grant or extension offices. If you don't have the capacity to be able to start a whole natural resources team, like we've been fortunate to do, there's resources within each of your destinations or everyone's destination to be able to tap into and learn about what sort of opportunities are out there, whether it be artificial reef creation, estuary restoration, or beach cleanups, all those other things. You can learn about those with the resources that already exist. But I always end up going back to fisheries. So as a destination, working with your restaurants to find out where those fish are coming from. Are they sustainably harvested? Are they being collected locally? Are they coming from overseas? What is that footprint look like? And then is that species sustainable to be removed from the oceans? So there's a lot of ways that restaurants, local tourism agencies, and other managers can kind of work together to change the landscape just on the restaurant level and what the impact is to our oceans. Again, I always seem to go back to fisheries because I'm most familiar with that. But you'll find that the best tasting fish are, in most cases, in a lot of cases, the most sustainable fishes. Lionfish, for example, are a fish that we encourage people to go and remove and are probably one of the tastiest fish that you'll find on the menu. So it's a win-win-win all around.
Yeah, as you were talking about, maybe some communities don't have the resources to devote a lot of staff time to something like this, but there actually, in a lot of communities, probably already exist groups, whether they're NGOs or volunteer groups or whatever, that are trying to protect some natural resource or promote it in some way, and that might be a good partnership as well. Obviously, you don't want to take advantage of a group for your own good exclusively, but if you can work together towards the common goal of protecting and maybe helping the community. And I'm curious, do you guys have any of those kinds of groups, like volunteer-led or friends of, or certain park groups that come out and you work together on some of these initiatives?
Absolutely. I think every single project that we work on is some form of collaboration. It just makes things go so much further. It's a lot smoother. It engages the community. And a lot of times those groups that we're working with are so hyper concentrated on whatever the issue may be that they can really tap into the people who care the most. And we are a little more broad and can tap into the folks that maybe are outside of our local area, and some of the groups that maybe are outside of our local area. But whether it be the beach cleanups or the artificial reef construction or invasive species removal, controlled burns, all these different things have a different set of stakeholders, a different set of groups that we partner with to make them happen. And there is absolutely no way that our destination would be as successful as it is without those partnerships.
Yeah, there's just, anywhere you go in the world, there's going to be great people doing great work. And I always think it's good when you can bring those people together and work cohesively rather than feeling like, oh, they're campaigning against this thing that we're all on the same side, you might find eventually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun, too, because you meet a lot of really, really cool people that you maybe would have never met in your normal way of life. It's been really enlightening, a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've talked about quite a bit in this conversation. Are there any resources that you'd share with listeners who want to learn more, or things that you've found super helpful?
So I think if you want to learn about any and all of our programs, a lot that I didn't even get to talk about today, you can go check out Destin-FWB.com, and you can bounce around in there, chat with real life people, real life moms about our destination. You can also learn about all the natural resource initiatives that we have going on and everything in between. So I highly recommend you checking out that website if you have a chance.
And is there anything else you want to touch on before we move on?
I don't think so. Not in this talk. There'll be more,
Okay.
I'm sure.
Well, we'll go ahead and move on to our green life hack portion of the show then. This is where we share one action or thing that people can do to live more sustainably. So, Alex, would you like to start us out?
Yeah, I think the number one is going back to the beaches. Remove from the beach more than what you came with. There's always going to be things that have washed up on the beach or people have unintentionally left on the beach. And my biggest piece of advice is don't just walk over them. Don't just step over them. Pick them up, bring them up to the trash cans that are wildly available along the beach and help make a difference.
Yeah, that's a great one. And to piggyback on that, I participated in a local group that does monthly beach cleanups, and the amount of stuff we find, it's mind-blowing sometimes. And I have to remind myself that not all of it was left there intentionally. Some of it blows in, and some of it's like old netting that breaks up and comes to the shore. But it's very overwhelming when you see the amount of rubbish.
Yeah. And I like to think the best of everybody and hope that the vast majority of that debris is items that maybe were placed there or left there unintentionally or washed in, whatever it may be, that people aren't as blatant as to just throw things out the window.
Yeah. Well, on that note, can I ask, how does your community handle trash on the beach? Do you have, I don't know, tons of bins everywhere, or do you have people that come out or groups, whatever? Like, what's your...
Great question. So all of our beaches have a lot of trash cans. You look in any direction, you're going to see trash cans available. If items happen to not make it into the trash can, the good news is we actually have beach sweepers that go out on the beach every morning after sea turtle surveys to make sure they aren't running over any nests. But the beach sweepers and the personnel helping maintain our beaches go out and remove any trash that maybe have been left, or old broken chairs or umbrellas or things that people maybe left on the beach. All of that is removed at the beginning of every day. So we're kind of left with a blank slate. But there's always things that are missed, so keep an eye out.
That's the thing. You can put the bins out there, but if people don't use them, then it's like, how do you actually get people to do the basic thing of putting it in?
Yeah, exactly. It's just more and more education, and hope that people respect the community that they're visiting.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my green life hack is kind of a simple one, and kind of, I don't know, something that you just wouldn't think about. But I was at a talk recently with a local researcher, and he was talking about consumer behaviors, and he brought up, if we all just deleted 10 emails from our inbox or our junk mail even, it would save, let me see here, 1.7 billion gigabytes of storage, which is 55.2 million kilowatts of power, which is a lot of money, but also a lot of energy and water. So since we're talking about beaches, obviously this is an important topic to talk about water and conserving water as well. But I know we always think about, like, the data centers are using up all this energy and water, but it's also the emails we have and the pictures on our phone and the videos and everything else. So we can actually help reduce that load as well if we delete some of that stuff off the cloud. And I just thought that was an interesting statistic, because I try to reduce my digital clutter just for my own sanity, but it's also good for the environment, it turns out. So there you go.
Very interesting. I'm going to use that stat, and I'm going to fire up my email when we get done with this and delete a few emails.
I know it was a big number. So, but yeah, I did verify online. Like, wow, it's such a simple thing. You wouldn't think.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on, Alex. One more time, where can we find you and or your organization online?
Yep, everything about our programs and everything I talked about today can be seen at Destin-FWB.com. Please take a look. There's a lot of awesome resources there.
Awesome. And you can find the show on Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're also on Buy Me a Coffee if you're interested in supporting us there. And you can find me personally at It's Gonna Be Me on Instagram and Blue Sky. For everyone listening, have a great rest of your day.